Geeks and geekettes, gats and kittens, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and people of Earth. It's Chuck Dixon back to answer questions about what I do for a living. And what I do for a living is I write comic books. Let's get right to the questions without any more fooling around. CJ Peterson, how do you decide how many panels are on each page of a comic? Is that something the writer does, or do you leave it to the artist? Let's take a look at the process. Let's take a look at a script to art comparison. Okay, I don't think I've ever done this here before, but I get so many questions about script form and the rest of it. This is what a comic book script page looks like, at least one from me. This is the format that I borrowed from Bob Kanigher. Why not? Why not borrow from the best? Kanigher used this from the Golden Age all the way into the Bronze Age. So it seems clear, elegant. Artists like this. Letterers like this format. It's clean and easy. So anyway, you see here, this is from an upcoming, actually the first issue of Midnight's War Night Streets, a new series that I'm doing at Arctunes. But we're writing it as a comic book because it will be eventually printed, not just appear digitally. So it's a standard comic book script. Page 2, panel 1, and I indicate that I want this to be the largest panel. Basically I write, Kyle has his weapon lowered, calls from the foreground as he runs. A hooded figure runs away across the broad, flat rooftop. He has a good head start. He has a bag on a strap over his shoulder. Pigeons flutter up in the foreground. We see rooftops and the city in the background, Gothic skyscrapers visible through haze in the far distance. Lots of rooftop details, stuff like antenna and sat dishes in evidence, maybe water puddled in spots. Okay, it's pretty clear. I'm painting a picture for the artist. Every comic book script is really a letter to the artist. Here's what I need you to draw for this story to make sense. Then we have the captions. This is where a promotion took me. I'm house sitting for vamps. It's a vampire. It's set in a universe ruled by vampires. And Kyle is shouting, he's rabbiting. Okay, so here's the pencil panel. This panel takes up most of the top part of the page. It's it's the opening of a story. I like to use larger panels toward the opening of a story to draw the reader in before we get to the smaller panel layouts. So yes, I am determining how many panels per page there are. And as you can see, Adamir Leal did a hell of a job. This is everything I asked for, and most importantly, featuring the most vital aspects of the panel. A chase is in progress. It's pretty obvious. You don't even need to read anything to know this is a chase in progress. And just a beautiful way to set up. Remember, this is page 2. Page 1 was a splash. So we go on. Panel 2, small slice panel, indicating the size of the panel. Kyle is turned, looking alarmed over his shoulder. I know that sound. I include the sound effect. Shack. Kyle shouts, Rizzo. All right, here's the panel. This is a slice panel. Now, it can be vertical or it can be horizontal, but the meaning is obvious. It's a thinner panel, meant to fit in between panels to indicate an action taking place. A detail of an action taking place between the other bits of action. And here's Kyle turning, shouting Rizzo. All right, so a little drama. Okay, we move on. Panel 3, Kyle's taken Rizzo's shotgun barrel in his fist and pushed it upward. It discharges. Rizzo looks surprised. Rizzo says, but you said, and Kyle says, but that was for his sake. Panel 4, Kyle runs toward us, gun low, with Rizzo trotting behind, chambering another round as he runs through a puddle. Kyle says, I want him to be able to talk. I'll try and keep up, you tub of goo. And Rizzo goes, yeah. And here is the pencil art by Adamir Leal. And as you see, Adamir has done what is required for the story. It's not just me telling him what to draw. It's the two of us coming to an understanding of what is needed to tell this story. Now, Adamir is free to adapt or change if he has a better idea for how to present this visually. I'm wide open to it because it's a collaborative medium. But here he's basically following exactly what I asked for. And I'm not asking for this, like, once again, out of ego or I'm the boss or my words are written in stone. But the artist, if you ask any comic book artist, what they want is clarity from the writer. What do we need, the two of us, to tell the story together? And what do you as the writer see as the most important aspect of this panel? What needs to be emphasized? What needs to be prominent? What needs to be telegraphed? What needs to be set up? And then the artist does that. And trust me, when I say this, is the biggest mistake I see new writers making, and I read scripts by very talented writers, but they all make the same mistake, is that they're too wishy-washy, too passive-aggressive in their art descriptions. They leave too much up to the artist. And the artist doesn't appreciate that. Because the artist is like, look, I don't want to make these decisions. I need you to make these decisions. You're the writer. And then I interpret. I bring my talents to bear after you've brought your talents to bear. And if there are changes to be made, we can talk about them. So there you go. This is what I do. And this is how it works. It's very basic. Mike Ortego. With James Gunn recently encouraging people to read the comics his upcoming movies are based on, should filmmakers of comic book movies do more to promote comics? Obviously, Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter had their fan base before the movies, but when the movies came out, the book sales skyrocketed. Should comics do more to take advantage of this? Yeah, I think we're all frustrated, and Mr. Gunn is right in promoting. I wish other filmmakers would do the same thing, would actually reference the comics. Maybe hold up a comic book every once in a while. For me, this is the most frustrating thing about this is this tremendous success now kind of waning. We kind of missed the boat here. This tremendous success that superheroes in particular have had in movies and television is not translated into sales. If anything, it's the opposite. Sales have plummeted in comics as these characters become more and more household names, more and more recognized, more and more popular. Why not make a direct connection between the two? Why not? Why doesn't DC and Marvel insist, the Marvel Comics publishers, why don't they lobby to, look, could you mention the comics more? Could you show the cast members reading the comics? Could you show the cast members recommending the comics? Could we have some movie to comic book panel comparisons to show the source material for this stuff so that maybe even 1% of the audience for these movies might actually go buy a comic book, which would increase the sales of comics dramatically. Even a little bit would move the needle, but they don't do it. And it's not like it's a new idea. It's been done in the past. Back when comics actually sold. Back when people actually read comic books. Normal people. Not just dedicated fans like you and I. But normal people read comics. I'm not to say we're abnormal, but hey, we're different. We're comic book geeks. We love this stuff. Okay? We're just like a sports nut, who's all about sports. We're all about comics, right? So, little help. Like I said, it's not a new idea. The comic book companies once upon a time knew to do this, to make the comic book, ancillary entertainment connection happen. There's no reason why they can't do it now, especially with the internet. You would think they'd be doing this every single freaking day. I remember back in the day, when the Roseanne Barr had her show before she got canceled, they used to request comic books because the kids in the Connor household read comics. And because the show was produced by Warner's, they would ask DC to every once in a while send boxes of comics that they could lay around the set. Probably helped us out, showing, real, although fictional, real people reading comics, actually people reading comic books on TV. So you went, hey, I wonder what that's about. Where do I get one of them? They look pretty cool. Gabrielle Ventura. Why did you left Birds of Prey and Green Arrow? Well, Green Arrow I left. I mean, when I took on Green Arrow, it was a favor to the editors. They didn't have a regular writer. They were casting around, and the regular writer had left the title for whatever reason. And they asked me, would you fill in? And I said, well, look, I'll write it for 6 months, just to give you 6 months to find somebody else. I ended up writing it for 3 years because I was having fun. But it was always going to sunset. It was always going to be something that I would leave eventually. And as things went on, they decided they wanted Kevin Smith to take over for me, for good or ill. I'll let you decide. And so my departure from Green Arrow was planned for, I think my 36th issue would be my last issue of Green Arrow, and I would put in elements that would set up the Kevin's run. So so that was planned why I left that. I was never meant to be on the title, as long as I was, and I really only gave it up because I believe I gave it up because they asked me to. It might have been with the beginning of Birds of Prey as a regular title. And it was just, even I couldn't do 5 monthly books and do my best work. Now, the reason I left Birds of Prey is pretty simple. I left for CrossGen. I quit DC. 2001, DC offered me an exclusive contract. I had one before. I was not anxious to sign another one because I didn't like being under an exclusive to DC because I ran through the upper limit, the guaranteed payment in the exclusive contract. I ran through it in like 6 months. And then I had a hard time convincing them to let me do more work. So they upped the amount considerably for the exclusive, but I wasn't happy at DC at the time. I wasn't, the editorial staff had changed. All of my favorite editors were gone. They were replaced by editors who were, as I often say, the kindest thing I can say is they were indifferent. They were indifferent to me. They seemed to be indifferent to the books themselves. They seemed to be indifferent to quality. And that's not what I was there for. I'm a professional writer, but I don't do it for the money, if that makes any sense. I do it because I love to do it. And if I'm not having fun, there's no reason to do it. So CrossGen made an offer, which was a lot less than DC's exclusive offer, but it looked like a lot more fun. So I came down here to Florida, and I'm still here. But yeah, that's why I left Birds of Prey when I did. Now, hey, a new feature here at Ask Chuck Dixon. It came from the Twitterverse. Now that Elon Musk has chased away all of the evil hall monitors who were ruining Twitter for everybody, I've been a lot more active. I've had a Twitter account since 2012, but I was never active there. Eric Burnham did me a great favor by setting up a Twitter account for me that basically echoed my Facebook account. So if I put something on Facebook, it would appear on Twitter. But I never went to Twitter to see what was going on or interact or anything like that because I knew it was a cesspool of scum and villainy. And so but when Elon Musk took over, I thought, well, let me take a chance and get more active on Twitter. And since then, I've grown my follower base and everything else. And I threw out a tweet and said, hey, anybody have any questions for Ask Chuck Dixon? And so the rest of these will be from those folks. So here we go with the first one. Paul NYC via Florida. What was the catalyst for starting the Bad Times novels, especially the first one? Henry Cavill playing Dwayne Rohrbach? Did you already have someone in mind when you thought of or began to write the first book? Who would you like to see play the role if it was ever adapted? Well, the catalyst for doing Bad Times was, the Bad Times books is a series of time travel books that I do, like, with an emphasis on military action. And they're primarily my, toy soldier fantasy books. I'd love to write historical fiction, and I have done a little bit, but at this time, when I started the Bad Times books, I didn't have time to do all the research. I needed to write stuff that would bring some money in. And so I wrote time travel, because that way I got to write historical adventure from a modern point of view, which takes less research because it's seen through modern eyes. It's seen through the eyes of characters from our time period, viewing the past, which didn't require as much research into language and voice and even the exact terminology of a lot of the things they were seeing. They were visitors in a strange time. And so, I wanted to write a series that I owned myself. This is before I created Levon Cade. And this fit the bill because it was time travel, which I love, although my wife says I get schizophrenic when I write time travel. It is a bit of a, it does mess with your mind, or at least it messes with my mind. And I think it should if you're going to do it right. If you're going to keep everything in order in a time travel story, you've really got to think hard about anomalies and paradoxes and blah, 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 all that stuff. So I wrote, 6 books in the series. They're somewhat self-contained. In the final book, it comes to a conclusion. The final book is Pirates of the Cretaceous. It does come to a conclusion. But so the catalyst was basically I needed to write something that I would enjoy writing that would bring some money in quick. And so I, went for, quick and dirty time travel stories. Not to say that they were quick and dirty, that they're easy to write, because they weren't. I labored over a bunch of these, but and did quite a bit of research, but mostly stuck to historical periods I was really conversant with, so I didn't have to do a lot of research. Although I did a lot of reading on the Franco-Prussian War, because for some reason I decided I wanted to include it, and I didn't really know that much about it, so I had to read a couple of books to get things right. I think I mostly wanted to do it because I wanted to be in that period and have a character use a Lamont pistol. See, toy soldier fantasy. And I didn't want to go visit the American Civil War. So I settled for the Franco-Prussian War, which happened around the same period, 1870s. Well, post-American Civil War. Blah, blah, blah. I'm getting geeky. As far as who would play the parts, I don't know. I never think about that stuff. I never think about casting because it seems so mercurial. And, I know it's fun. It's a fun parlor game, but for me, it seems kind of pointless because, you never know who's going to play something if these were ever to be made into a movie. And there has been some interest off and on in producing these as films, but nothing concrete has ever happened. But they're still available on Amazon in ebook and paperback form. So if you want to check them out, I'd sure appreciate it. And let's move on to the next question. Jason Sandberg, your favorite Dennis Miller moments, quotes, skits, or jokes? Yeah, Dennis Miller. I have this tenuous connection with Dennis Miller in that, I really enjoyed his radio show for the most part. And I remember him on Saturday Night Live, fearlessly talking about O.J. Simpson in a way that no one else on TV was talking about the O.J. Simpson trial. And he always seemed sort of, a guy who just, he didn't care as long as it was funny. He went for it. Of course, even Dennis admits that he has this peculiar set of talents where he can just go on these rants using often obscure cultural references to make his point. But I'll tell you, my favorite Dennis Miller moments were really not, they were really the weeks of his radio show, because he began doing a 3-hour a day radio show, which ran for years, noon to 3. And it was fascinating to listen to the first few weeks of it, because he wasn't a radio guy. He's basically a comedian, and really quick, really good with the off the cuff remarks. But when you hear Dennis Miller, you expect him to be funny, and to be funny for 3 hours that's tough, right? So the first few weeks of the Dennis Miller radio show were like radio theater. I was fascinated by it. I even recorded some of them to make sure I didn't miss anything, because nothing against Dennis Miller, but over the first few weeks, you could sense by the middle of the second hour, he was exhausted. And he was struggling to keep going at the same pace. Because here this guy's mind is churning. He's trying to stay funny. He's improvising. He's having fun with guests and everything else, but he didn't really have a format nailed down. And that format sometimes rescues you. And he wasn't interacting as much with his crew as he would later. He was trying to carry this whole thing on his back, and it was amazing to listen to this performer, really running a marathon every day, and probably having to be spend the rest of the evening in a whirlpool bath, either mentally or physically, to get over the exertion. And then eventually they formatted the show, they worked out whatever bugs they need to work out, and he began to pace himself. And the show was excellent from the beginning, and it was always funny, but that sense of inertia, that sense that he was winded by the third hour was gone. And like a champ, he was doing 3 hours, bing bang boom, alpha male, top of his game for 3 hours. And that, to me, those opening weeks are amazing. I don't know if they're available anywhere on the internet or anything else, but if you're a fan of like radio or a fan of just performing at all, you need to listen to them, because this guy did a Herculean task. He basically grew into the job. And again, I'm not taking anything away from him. It was very brave. I think it was a very courageous thing for the guy to do. And he probably, in the first few weeks of the show, often wondered, what the hell did I get myself into? Now, my own connection to this show was Paul Ravoche and I, for some reason, we both listened to the show. We decided to do a mock cover of Mansquito, a character that Dennis Miller, a superhero character that Dennis Miller played around with on the air. He would talk, he would just riff on this half man, half mosquito character. And so Paul and I came up with the idea for doing a Bronze Era Marvel cover of the mightiest Mansquito. And Paul sent a print, large poster size print, to Miller's studio, and Miller was so moved, and he talked about it on the air, that he had it framed, and it for years it was right behind him at the studio when he would do the show, because you could watch the show on a podcast, and it was next to I think it was the Saturday Night Live cast photo signed by the entire cast, when Miller was on SNL. And it sat next to one of his most treasured possessions. And we, Paul and I thought that was kind of cool. And he would often talk about it on the air. Now, the other time connection was I was on the show one time, because when the movie Dark Knight Rises came out, if you remember, Mitt Romney was running against Barack Obama for the presidential election. And some moron somewhere came up with the idea that Bane, the Batman villain created by myself and Graham Nolan, was created for the movie, even though it had been created, a decade earlier, was created for the movie to basically go after Mitt Romney's hedge fund company, Bain Capital. which nothing could be further from the truth. And Rush Limbaugh fell for this hoax and then corrected himself the next day when he was informed. But Miller had me on to, briefly to talk about the creation of Bane and all the rest of it. I mean, for like a week there, I was doing a lot of talk radio because people wanted to talk to, they wanted to fill some time talking about Bane and Mitt Romney and all the rest of that. Complete silliness. Auf Wiedersehen. What happened to Phenom Comics? Any hope for another Hunter Ninja Bear volume? Well, nothing happened to Phenom Comics. They're still around. Hunter Ninja Bear is available. We've got Phenom has a hell of a slate coming up with top talents like Tony Bedard and Scott McDaniel. But what Phenom does is they don't do monthly books. They do these, tentpole huge graphic novels. God bless them. Someone's trying to do something to, raise the level of quality in American comics. But they do these, large, very seriously huge, several evenings of reading graphic novels. Hunter Ninja Bear is just the first of them. I have another project coming from them. It's Seven Deadly Sinners by me and Bob C. Harden, and it is in production now. The artwork's been done for quite a while. The coloring's been done for several months, and you will be seeing it offered through crowdfunding from Phenom very soon. And like I said, they have many other projects which are completely done, completely finished. A whole slate, a whole shelf, if you will, of really cool graphic novels coming up. Like I said, these guys are serious about being players in the comic business, and also the Finoglio brothers are very serious about ancillary entertainment and all the rest of it. I've been in talks with them and some people on several occasions, and they have a very ambitious ideas. I mean, they're not going to compete with DC and Marvel. They're competing in an entirely different arena. They're basically making the game their own. They're not playing the comics game the way everybody else does. And good for them. They are doing the Lord's work. And there will be another Hunter Ninja Bear. The brothers have ideas for it. I mean, remember, I did not come up with the story for Hunter Ninja Bear. They come up with the story, and I'm like the screenwriter who takes the story and turns it into a comic book. Of course, with a lot of input and a lot of collaboration, a lot of back and forth with them. But we have an easy working relationship. I really dig what these guys are doing, and I want to be a part of it. I want to be a part of Phenom in a big way, which is why I brought them Seven Deadly Sinners. Now, Seven Deadly Sinners is a whole creation of me and Bob Harden, and it's creator owned. It's not owned by Phenom, and but they saw it and they dug it and they wanted to do it, and most importantly, they wanted to do it in the format that Bob and I most wanted it done in, which is a serious hardcover collection with a lot of back matter. Bob produced an enormous amount of back matter while drawing this series. So there's going to be lots of extras and bonuses in addition to the 110-page graphic novel, which incidentally it's our love letter to the biker films of the 1970s. It's car crashes, and gunfights, and fistfights, and yeah, you're going to love it. It's got the longest car chase ever presented in comics. I don't know if that's a record anybody else is going for, but I think if there's ever been a car chase in manga, trust me, we beat it for page count. It's awesome to behold. Bob is an absolutely tremendous talent. Bruce Patnoid. Oh man, I am murdering your last name. I don't even know is that French? Just curious. How much input does your artist have when visualizing your script? They have as much input as they want or don't want. I'm open to anything. I mean, working on something big for Art Tunes, I do a lot of back and forth with Frank Fosco. He'll suggest changes or to change the emphasis in a panel or a way to make something clearer, and I'm open to it because, in my opinion, and in my overall philosophy in doing comics, the artist literally spends a lot more time on the page than I do. I might spend 20 minutes writing a page, probably often less. The artist is going to spend most of the day, if not all day, drawing that page. And so I think the artist should have an enormous amount of say. And obviously, they're the one visualizing it. They're the one making it into a comic book. So I respect the artist's input, welcome the artist's input. Most of my scripts on the front page assure the artist, if I'm working with them for the first time, that I want to hear from them. And if they need reference, if they have questions, suggestions, there's my email. They can get a hold of me. We can talk on the phone. We can Zoom call, whatever they want. But most artists, just take the script as it is. We saw what Adamir Leal does with my scripts, and I've never spoken to Adamir. I'm not even certain Adamir speaks English, and I'm absolutely certain I don't speak his language because I only speak English. So, but he always nails it. So there's really no reason to talk. I think my scripts are clear enough that there's not a lot of questions. There's not a lot of ambiguity about what I'm going for. So the only time I hear from the artist generally is if they simply have a better idea, or they want to add a panel, or subtract a panel, or what could I turn this into a double page spread? Well, yeah, let me take a look at it, and maybe cut some of the dialogue, and think about the panel configuration. But yeah, if you want to do a 2-page spread, we can work that out. So I'm just open. I'm just flexible. Comic book artists work hard, and they deserve consideration. I can't do it without them. Nick Lenz, how did your runs for Robin and Birds of Prey come about? Also, I've seen you in person a few times at Comic-Con, talked about The Outsiders and Bane. I've also met Graham Nolan since then. This is where I pretend I remember you? No. Now, if I saw you, I'd probably remember you. But yeah. Thank you. How did I get Robin? It was Denny O'Neil. Denny O'Neil reached into comic book obscurity and plucked me from the shadows and gave me the job of Robin. He had read, this is back when they used to hire on merit. It's an unknown concept now in the United States. He had read my Airboy run, I guess, because he was old enough to remember Airboy and was probably curious about it. Archie Goodwin also gave me Alien Legion based on my Airboy run. So he invited me to write a Robin miniseries based on my Airboy work. He liked the way I wrote a younger character, that I made the younger character likable. He wasn't a jerk. He wasn't a brat. He didn't talk in quote unquote contemporary slang. I wasn't trying to be hip just because he was a young character. Always a mistake, dreadful mistake, trying to write contemporary youthful characters in contemporary youthful voices. You just sort of have to meet some sort of a compromise without using a lot of slang, which would be dated 6 months after the comic came out. And probably dated even before then because, by the time I've heard slang, it's old, it's it's past its shelf life, past its sell-by date. So anyway, he brought me on and, invited me at first, and I never say yes immediately to a project. So I met with him, and I was quite frank that I didn't have any ideas for Robin. Robin wasn't a character I'd ever really thought about, much other than reading the stories. And then he convinced me of the value that Robin holds in the Batman family, why he's there, why he's a recurring character, why he's popular with readers. Maybe not always popular with fans, but popular with casual readers. And of course, we were still in the newsstands back then, and casual readers were an important part, if not the majority, of our readership. Trust me, the majority of comic book readership is not comic book fans, or was not in the past. It's casual readers, which goes a long way to explain why comic book sales have fallen in recent years. We've entirely lost the casual reader portion of the readership. So anyway, he convinced me to give it a shot. I sent him a story. He liked it, and then we were off to the races. And I fell in love with the character, and it was the beginning of a long and fruitful relationship between Denny and I. I was 11 years on Batman, thanks to Denny's tutelage and guidance and mentorship and faith. He always had faith in me that I would do a good job, and that means everything to a writer. Now, Jordan B. Gorfinkel is the mother of Birds of Prey. I would say he's the father of Birds of Prey, but he more basically sat on the egg until Birds of Prey hatched. He came up with the concept of Black Canary and Oracle teaming up, and the idea that for a long time in the series, Oracle's identity would be hidden from Black Canary, and she wouldn't even know who she was working for. I thought, that was a cool concept, but I resisted writing it for a long time, and Gorf, because I was busy. I was really busy at DC and Marvel too at the same time. And Gorf kept coming back to me, and I said, okay, let's do a special. We'll do a one-shot special, which we did. And then Gorf continued, like I said, he's the mother of the Birds of Prey. He continued to push Birds of Prey at editorial meetings. So whenever there was an opportunity, whenever there was a hole in the printing schedule, he would say, well, hey, we could do a Birds of Prey, another Birds of Prey one-shot. So we did a bunch of one-shots. We did a mini-series once because a mini-series they were planning, a mini-series that was scheduled to go to the printers, which is a big deal in comics. It was scheduled to go to the printers, got canceled. And all of a sudden there was this opening at the printers for a 4-issue miniseries, and Gorf calls me and says, could you write a Birds of Prey miniseries to fill this gap in the printing schedule? And I had no time to write the first issue. The first issue had to be written in just a few days to get an artist started to meet this printing schedule. Because I don't know if you know this, but when you miss your print date, when your art isn't ready, you're penalized. Not only that, but you've got to re-solicit it through Diamond, and that always costs you sales. But we hit it. We filled that gap. And I think that was the thing that convinced DC, the editors at DC, that this was worth a monthly. And we launched the monthly. And it was a big success. A TV series, a couple of movies, a long run, beyond even what I did. And very, very cool, huh? But it's all Jordan. It was all Jordan from beginning to end. It was his awesome idea, which I was, reluctant to work on, and turned out to be good for both of us and all of us and you fans who love Birds of Prey. Hey, if you want to contact me, you have questions, comments, Twitter's a great place now. Thank you, Elon. And you can ask me questions on Facebook. You can ask questions below this video. Chances are I'm going to miss them. I won't miss them if you go to brunobookstore@gmail.com. brunobookstore@gmail.com. That is the place to go to reach me. And while I got you, my Avalon series, my 12-issue Avalon series has been collected into one huge 308-page graphic novel. It's my take on superheroes, and it's superheroes unpinned to any company's continuity. So anything can happen to them. They die, they go to prison, they're dishonored, just horrible things happen to these superheroes in the fictional city of Avalon, a brand new fictional city I created inside of the Alt Hero universe. And you can order it from Archaven directly, or you can get it on Amazon. Like I said, it's a big honking 308-page graphic novel that tells one complete superhero saga of this ensemble cast of superheroes that maybe you've been following them at Arctunes, but this is the complete story. This is the story you've been following at Arctunes, complete in one volume, and it's available right now at Amazon. I will provide the link below. Hey, I want to thank you all for listening. I want to thank you for watching. and liking and subscribing and help spread the word about this channel. And welcome to you tweeters. And I'll see you all down the road.